Hello everyone, we are with you with another video of the Storyteller of the Night channel. First of all, thank you for liking this video and subscribing to our channel. When we consider the fact that ancient Egyptian culture existed for almost 3 millennia from the Bronze to Wellington to the Imperial Room and era, it should come as no surprise that so many people around the world are fascinated by each. How about the majority of the artifacts, temples, and monuments discovered since Napoleon started what is now known as Egypt to mania tell the story of the royal family and elite? Today, we will delve into the lives of the people who built the foundations of this great civilization. This is the world sponsor of this video. Pharaoh and New Era. The game is a remake of the legendary city builder Pharaoh from back in 1999, in which you take control of Egyptian society through 4,000 years of history and build settlement worthy of the greatest of pharaohs. This modernization effort brings in new mechanics UI designed to vastly improve the already amazing game, even featuring a real orchestrated soundtrack where you're free to do it please. From the beginning of recorded history to the heights of civilization, take care of your people on over God Egypt and see if you can do better than the real Egyptian society we'll be describing today. The game just launched on Steam, so once you're done with that video, get over there right away and start building ancient Egypt for yourself. In the description, one of the most popular nicknames for the ancient Egyptian civilization is the gift of the River Nile, one which they themselves would certainly agree with. For millennia, the longest river in the world, with anonymous with life itself according to their beliefs. Its incredibly predictable seasonal flooding gave the Egyptians the means for sustenance, housing, clothing, bathing, writing, and transportation. Amidst the desert, fierce river allowed one of the greatest coaches to flourish, while it is remembered for its colossal monument, mystical pharaoh, and colorful pantheon people in the ancient world. Numerous large stones that is foundation in ancient Egyptian society, with made up of what we would consider peasants, working from dawn to dusk and serving the state as either farmers, builders, or soldiers. But what was life like for them in the middle class of craftsmen and artisans? That is the question we will attempt to answer today. The life of most people in Egypt was tied to the 3 seasons dictated by the River Nile. Starting at the end of July, the river overflowed at broad prosperity and fertility to the ground. The people either repaired their tools or work on massive building projects for a wait. The pyramids sent many other structures were built utilizing such a draft. Then between January and May came the time for sowing season of emergent or parent. As the water levels dropped, fish and thick layers of silk will last behind. Muddy sediment packs with nutrients supercharge the soil, allowing the growth of an abundance of crop soil without the use of fertilizer. Houses people live in. Egyptian families lived and worked on the lands close to the river, lent to them by the state or priests. The women showed to feed cows and oxen. A herd of sheep would pass through and bury the seed deep into the soil. The last season was called chimo, meaning low water, and with the time for harvest, it's lasted between May and September, and during that period the farmers gathered their produce. Since there was almost no rain, canals had to be dug and repaired, which usually happened around this season as well. The main crop that were cultivated were mostly cereals such as barley and wheat. But the Egyptians also had access to vegetables such as leeks, onions, cucumbers, radishes, beans, garlic, and chickpeas. Fruits such as figs, steaks, grapes, and melons wearing indigenous and most people pomegranate scent watermelon, which was a fabric suitable for the heartland weather. And linen was made by harvesting flax. Papyrus, with use for writing, also relied on the flooding of the river, as did the well-developed fishing industry. Last, but certainly not least, the Nile flowed north, burst the winds blew south, which turned it into a highway. Families owned wooden boats or skipped, allowing them to travel great distances. Larger ships could carry huge cargoes or giant stones used in construction sites, with the ship following the current north and sailing back south. In fact, the oldest sail in the world, dated to 3100 BC, was found in Egypt. Considering this incredibly strong tie between the people and the river, it is easy to understand why the ancient Egyptians put so much emphasis on balance. The Nile had an enormous symbolic role on this society. While the sun is pulled by a chariot in many other mythologies, the Egyptians portrayed it as sailing on a boat were made on the river with onlookers on either side, and the river is also an integral part of the creation myths. Brought a plentiful harvest, which represented a lot more than food. Since ancient Egypt spaced their currently on grain for almost 3,000 years, this prosperous culture never minted coins, instead using a special type of barter system based around the devon, according to historian James C. Thompson, as the $75. Litters of wheat cost 1 devon, and a pair of candles also got 1 devon. Perfect Egyptians that a pair of sandals could be purchased with a bag of wheat as easily as with a chunk of copper. Had more than enough wheat, she would happily accept it in payment, because it could easily be exchanged for something else. The most common items used to make purchases were wheat, barley, and cooking or lamp oil, but in Syria almost anything would do. But if the crops a family harvested were essentially their salary, this meant that storage was a very important issue. State compensations were also paid in grain, which was usually stored in temples. As for the everyday ancient Egyptian, his crime had to be protected by scarecrows, and B small granary had to be guarded by, you get it, and adorable little cat, and spoiling the grains catch also made excellent pets used for hunting cobras. He wrote it who went to Egypt during the 5th century BC emphasized that domestic animals were abundant, and recorded that the death of a pet was met with great sorrow by the entire house. They plucked their eyebrows in distress when the cat died, and they saved the entire body, including the head if it was a dog that died. Some of them were well-off citizens also kept baboons, who made great companion and helped with fruit harvesting. It is also true that many cats were mummified and placed in two alongside their owners. Number 5 cats that archaeologists discovered were actually specifically bred to be killed, mummified, and been sold in zoo shops. Fertility cat, how Romans sacrificed live animals. Others who shot also told mummified fish, mice, crocodiles, snakes, and birds, depending on the day of people wanted to give tributes to once the family had secured its harvest. It was either protest traded or consumed twice a day, once at dawn and one in the evening. For the lower social classes, breakfast usually consisted of bread, a jug of beer, and some onions to start the day. Tombs, the bread was baked in nearly every house. Simply spread was made with flour, water, and salt, but some added honey and baked or made it in the form of figures like gingerbread men. The production of beer, on the other hand, was closely monitored by the state, with specific instructions on how to prepare the drink, invented by a firearm himself seated. Labels detailing the year it was made, by region of origin, and the brewery labels were even more specific regarding wines. Beer also had many different variety from sweet to strong. The beverage was consumed with a straw by every member of the family, including children. Alcoholics content with enough to kill most bacteria, making it far safer than water from the Nile. For dinner, the family would gather in the mud brick house featuring small windows on the top, which kept the home cool in the summer. There the adults would eat on small tables, children would sit on pillows and eat the floor. Grape and beer were as usual on the menu, but this time there was a wide selection of vegetables, small birds, fish, eggs, and for dessert, fruit and cakes. Here the focus was on quantity, not quality, to a not-so-intricate cuisine compared to places is like ancient Greece and Rome. This mostly vegetarian diet yielded around 3,800 calories a day, almost twice the recommended daily amount, especially considering that ancient Egyptians were shorter. However, it was necessary to support their extremely laborious lifestyle. Counting the rare and the famine, nobody in Egypt starved, as the communal mentality led to cooperation amongst the different households, which lived very close to each other. Society was seen as an important part that kept daily life going. Everyone was difficult and dangerous. Crocodile, hippos, and even king cut himself with mane by another blacksmith. Brickley is chariot makers, miners, and those who work in the quarries were often injured. One was a valued member of society. The lucky few who could become priests or scribes needed to be literate. And since Egypt provided no benefits or education to the lower classes, that was not easy. In fact, only between 5 to 10%, almost exclusively men, were literate and could hope for an easier life, social mobility, or the ability to climb the pyramid with virtually non-existent. Maintain the household, and boy is where to pick up their father's tree. While I could believe the most famous pharaoh is a woman, Cleopatra was merely one of the 5 female pharaohs in the nearly 3 millennia-old history of ancient Egypt. That being said, ancient Egyptian women had significantly more rights than their counterparts in the rest of the Mediterranean world for perhaps a few 1,000 years. Once again, a perplexed recount: women attend market and are employed in trade, while men stay at home and do the weaving. Indeed, women could own a business, didn't require an escort, received inheritance, had the ability to divorce with later dynasty, giving contention to the woman if the man wronged her. Speaking of right-band social classes, it is very important to note that the role of pleas in ancient Egyptian society has been gravely exaggerated. While they did exist, they made our pay very small portion of the population, and they almost certainly did not build the pyramids. Anyway, back to the topic of love and marriage. Many beautiful songs and poems remain, at least 50 from the New Kingdom period alone. Stories of Egyptian couples who loved each other in both prosperous and difficult times. Marry and love your wife more than the whole world, give her plenty of food and beautiful dresses, and make her happy until death could field for a toner, but you have to know how to cultivate it. After courting a woman, the man would go over to her house and present a bundle, a symbol showing his status and most precious possessions, inviting her to live with him without the need of any relief, judicial intervention, or oversight. There were a number of customs associated with the wedding. Performed in one of the favorite Egyptian pastimes, the banquet included the exchange of a ring symbolizing the eternal bond between the two lovers. Gatherings were the glue that tied the community together. They would sing, dance, perform rituals, and celebrate. The state also held many banquets and festivals on specific holidays, connected to certain dates. Female musicians played lute, rattles, trumpet, flute, drums, and harps, and pairs of fingers from both genders performed beautiful songs that the audience. This was also an opportunity to show off their highly decorative clothes. Shoes and hairstyles would be an understatement. This was a culture that believes that the body passed on to the afterlife in its exact form when counter fair way to present themselves at their best. Beautiful white linen clothes which follows the curvature of the body. Typically wear very hard to dye, but accessories and jewelry. Wearing mask on vacation featuring precious stones like lapis lazuli connected alien and turquoise with metals such as copper, silver, and gold. Colors had significant meaning, and one would make a grave mistake to wear white sandals, a symbol of purity and funeral rite to a party. We mostly know of all of these details because the clothes, jewels, perfume, scent, cosmetics were all applies to the mummified body. We have discovered since they believed they were part of the same journey, enjoyed leisure time in many different forms. They hunted lions, leopards, and wild animals for alongside their pets, hunted birds with boomerang or fish with harpoons. In the family, they played sports such as wrestling, stick fighting, archery, javelin throwing, swimming, rowing, all their own version of hockey. Children and adults are played board games like Senate or Mayhan or Diet. These are just some of the parts of everyday life for most people. And the most fascinating thing about this culture is that most of the things we describe in this video went on for almost 3 millennia with very little change in tradition. Latest news in order to preserve the body of the dead, so they may enjoy afterlife surrounded by all of their mundane and favorite items to perfume. But if you want to see more videos covering the daily life of the ancient world, subscribe and press the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. It helps us immensely.